Hi everyone and welcome to the channel and welcome to the FreeCAD mini series for the Curves Workbench. Today we're going to be looking at creating waffle structures in the Curves Workbench. At the end of this tutorial you'll be able to make this. Now I'm going to be looking at more organic structures like this in future videos after taking inspiration from the Eden project and also from my older Rhino 3D tutorials that are somewhere out there on the web. We'll be starting with a basic build with a simple waffle slab. We'll be looking at two ways of doing that. One using exploded parts in the part workbench and the other one using split curves in the curves workbench. We'll be then moving on to this waffle structure and you'll see how simple it is to create and build using the curves workbench and the part workbench. We'll be then looking at using a much fuller profile and creating a structure from that. That's going to be a very simple structure, but in future videos we'll go on to create more organic architecture based structures and look to see what else the Curves Workbench has to offer. So I hope you're enjoying this series and let's have a look at this technique. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/mangoJellySolutions. So we're going to make a basic waffle slab for starters and then move on to more complex waffle structures. We're in the sketcher and I've created a new document. So I've come into the sketcher. You're going to need the Curves Workbench for this as well. And if you haven't got the Curves Workbench, then you need to install it from the Tools Add-on Manager. This is part of the Curves Workbench series. So you need that in there. It's quite easy to install, so go ahead and install that first. I'm going to go full screen on this so we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to create a new sketch in the sketcher. And I'm going to sketch this along the ZX plane or the XZ plane. And okay, that. What I'm looking to do is create a number of B-splines in here, which will be the edge of our surface. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm creating B-splines, two of them in one document like this rather than two documents. There is a reason why. I've got these two B-splines here, they're not connected. If I hit close, those two are there. The reason being is that if I go over to the Curves Workbench, I want to be able to move these without clicking on the sketch and doing the placement. I can move them by placement quite easily, but I'd rather move them by hand by right click and transforming. And also I can show you how parametric this is in that way. So I'm going to extract these curves out by clicking on one and using the small tool over here called Join Curves, this one here. Also available on Curves, Join Curve. That's extracted that out. We're going to do the same with the other one. So we've got the two join curves there. Come into the sketch, just click on it, press the spacebar just to hide it. See these two join curves there? Two separate curves, and we can right click, transform, and rotate, etc. These are fully parametric, so if I come back into the sketch and make this a bit more interesting, let's pull this one down and bring this part up. Like so, close that. You can see that's taking effect on those join curves. Let's give us a bit more space. There we go. Okay, that. So we've got our two curves sitting there. I'm going to create a surface across here on the part workbench and create our surface between this one and control click this one and use a ruled surface, also available from part, create ruled surface. You can use a loft if you so desire, but I'm going to use a ruled surface across those. I'm just going to modify that join curve and you can see that we can just do some modifications against this and place it where we want. Okay, that. So that's my surface there, all ready to go. We can come back over on the Curves Workbench. We're going to utilize a tool against this surface. So click the surface, you'll see this tool become enabled, ISO curve, or surfaces, ISO curve, and that creates a grid on that surface. It's not embedded in the surface. I click on the ruled surface, which is selected there, press the spacebar, you can see that grid there. We can change that grid by clicking on it and changing the U and V. So I'm going to change it to 8 and 8, and you'll see that the grid changes and increases. We've still got our join curves available there, sitting there like so. What I'm going to do is, because this, if we look down the bottom left, roll over, and you can see their edges. Remember back in the part, there's an extrude. Well, we can extrude that. So click on the ISO curve, and we're going to extrude this by 10 millimeters. And now we're going to need to pick the Z axis because we want to extrude straight up. And we hit OK. And that's extruded out like so. Next, I want to actually take each of these and move them out of this structure. So at the moment it's fully parametric, so I can click on the join curve and right click, transform, and rotate this, hit OK, and you can see that changes. The same if I change the sketch and change one of these and hit close. It's fully parametric. So I'm going to click on the extrude, come up to the part, come down to compound and go explode compound. Once I've exploded that compound, I can get to the individual parts and create 3D offsets against those. And we'll increase that. You can see that offset is increasing there, and we'll fill the offset and hit OK. Like so. And we can do that for them. Unfortunately, you can't control click them and do that. We could come in and do an extrusion on those two if we so desire. So we're extruding along the Y plane, so this plane here, Y. And we look down, we've got extrusion 14 and 15 that I've just selected. And we're going to extrude it by 3 mil and apply that. So we've got those extruded. So we can do that on them all. And we can do that for every single one of these. So I can go through and select them all and do that. Let's close that. I'm just going to get rid of these extrudes and the offset and delete those. Now I'm just going to highlight all of these, making sure these ones are visible. And I'm going to work backwards, so I get all of these first. And do the extrude along the Y. So that's 3 mil. And then do the same along the X. And do that to 3 mil as well. And hit OK. So we've got those now. Come into the sketch and move the sketch and hit close. You can see that's moved as well. So we've maintained the parametric abilities of that sketch. We're going to look at another way of doing this in the Curves Workbench, but using the ISO curve along with the split curve together to make those extrudes. So how do we go from this to something a bit more interesting? Well, I'm going to get rid of those extrudes and that one, and we've got back this ISO surface. Just press delete on those. Just going to delete that ISO surface because we're going to start again from the ruled surface. We're going to jump over to the Curves Workbench, and we're going to make an ISO curve against here. So click on that and click on our ISO curve. And then we're going to click again and create a second ISO curve. So we've got 2 ISO curves in here. These 2 here. Just going to hide both of them and work on one first. So from this one, I just want the horizontal lines. So I'm going to come down to maybe V. It's the ones we want to keep. Let's remove the U. So the number U and number V on the properties of the ISO curve. We've got those lines there, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's increase this to something like 8. So we've got those ISO curves there. Let's bring back the others, so hide the first one, bring back the other one, and we're going to 0 the V. So we've got those 5 there. We're going to increase this by something like 8. So we've got those ISO curves there. So now we've got the 2 sets of ISO curves. I'm just going to hide the ruled surface. I've pressed the space bar on the ruled surface. And also I'm going to hide both of these join curves. So I've shift selected them, press the space bar on those. We need to extract out all these curves. So I want to extract out all these horizontal ones and all of these vertical ones. It's actually quite easy to do this, but there is a technique that we need to use. So I'm going to hide the horizontal ones and just bring back these ones here. I can use this split curve, but if we select it in the list and then use the split curve to extract these out, then we're going to hit an issue. Because if I try that now, we'll get one single split curve there. Just going to delete that and bring those ISO curves back. The reason is if we go out to View, Panels, Selection View, and click the ISO curve, you can see that ISO curve, we've got one single selection there and it's showing ISO curve, and we need to select the individual lines here. I can come in and click, control click, and you can see the individual lines or curves are coming in there, but that's quite laborious. Instead, I'm going to use the edit box selection, and we can box select by holding down the mouse pointer or the mouse button and dragging across those, and you can see those individual curves have been selected. Now when we use the split curve, it will split out every single curve that's on there. Again, if we come in to our sketch and change this tool, let's drop this side down, close that. This is going to be parametric, so that side there has dropped. What we need to do is just come into that split curve and just click on the ISO curve and just press the space bar so that's hidden, and remember to collapse that directory there. We don't need the selection view now, we can get rid of that. So we've got the individual lines that we can now use in our extrudes. So come over to the part, click the split, shift click the last split, and apply an extrude. And we're applying this along the Z axis. We're going to make it 10 millimeters and hit OK. And that's created our extrude there. We can now extrude these individually by clicking on one extrude, clicking on the other, and extruding that. And we're looking along the X axis, X, and change this to something like 2 mil. Gives us a depth on those, so you can see that's got a depth there. Can do the same now with the other ISO curve, this one here. Maybe worth coming in to your document, right click, create a group. That'll create a group in there, and we can click on one extrude, click on the other, and move that into the group for those extrudes. So those are out of the way. That means when I click on that group, press the spacebar, they all hide. Let's bring that back. Let's bring back the other ISO curve and click on the group, press the spacebar. So that's hidden now, and we've got those curves. Now we're in the part workbench and we haven't split these out yet. So we need to come over to the curves workbench. And again, let's click to make sure we haven't got anything selected. Edit box element selection, or Shift plus E. Select those curves. Those are all selected now. Come up to the split curve, split those all out. Remember to come into one and hide the ISO curve. Just collapse that. Now I've got all those split curves, we can come over to the part workbench and repeat the process. Click one, shift click the other, select the mole. Z plane, extrude along the Z, 10mm, okay that, and then click again and extrude 1mm or 2mm along the Y axis to give that depth, and okay that. And we're going to move these into a group. So right click on unnamed or your document name and create group, and then we can move these extrudes into that group. So the visibility is now on that group like so. We've forgotten to remove one of these side items here, so we can come in, you can see we can highlight one of these and either press the spacebar on that or delete it if we so desire. I just press the spacebar to hide those, and we can use that shape and bring back the ruled surface. You can see that sitting on there. So we can use that shape for whatever we want. Remember, this is parametric, so come into the sketch and I'm going to drop down the center and bring up on these tops. Just change that, close that, and you can see how that's changed. We're going to venture deeper now and make that complex model, or what looks complex, that we saw earlier. We're going to be using the pipe shell in the Curves Workbench along with the trim tool. We're going to create a surface, create a pipe shell, and then create the profiles to create the waffle structure and bring them all together. As said before, this is quite simple to do, so don't get put off by the look of the model, because after the build you'll find out that it's not as complex as what it seems. So we've started a new document, and I'm going to come back over to the sketcher, and we're going to first create our surface. So I'm going to click on the sketch tool, and we're looking along the ZX plane or XZ plane, and okay that. So we're in the sketcher and we're going to create this time a loft. So we're going to go with the extrusion profiles for the time being, and we're going to do exactly the same and create an interesting surface. And I'm just going to create 3 curves in there. Close that, and we're going to come back over to the Curves Workbench and do the same. So we're selecting a curve, and then we're using the Curves Workbench join tool, and we'll select the next one. Do the same. We can't select these all at once because they will join up all together. If we're going to do that, we're going to use the split curve. So I've got these join curves here. Hide the sketch, and we can start transforming these. So transform. We're not worried about scaling at the moment, we're just demonstrating the technique. We've got 3 curves. We're going to make a loft over in the part workbench, so I'm going to use the loft tool here. So part loft, or we can use the tool from the toolbar here, and we're going to use those join curves. So we click on one, we can double click or use the arrow key, pass those over, and we hit OK. And that's our surface created. We can come into the loft and click on one curve, shift click the other, and press the space bar to hide those. So we've got our surface. We're going to create a pipe shell now, and I'm going to decide where the pipe shell is going to go. So I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle. So somewhere here. For that, I'm going to come over to the sketcher. I'm going to create a sketch, but I'm not going to attach it to this surface. I'm just going to create a sketch. You can play with the different types of attachment. You can use a datum plane if you want it attached to there. But I'm just going to demonstrate the technique, and it's up to you to modify it to your liking. I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to place it, go over to the model, that sketch there. We're going to transform that sketch, so the placement, the position. And I'm just going to place it along the Z axis. I'm going to move it up. So it's there. So it just hovers over there. Come in with a circle and auto constrain it. I've got my auto constraints on. So I've, over in tasks, auto constraints are on. Connect it to that center and just create a circle like so. And we can do some adjustments to our drawing curves, our loft, transform that. And I'm just going to transform this into position and hit OK. So we're in position now. Come over to the Curves Workbench. And I want to cut this hole in here. So I'm going to select the edge. And I'm going to control click outside. And this is what I want to keep. I'm going to use the trim tool. Trim a face with the projective curve. Make sure the top is my projection, so making sure that our projection is correct. We're looking top down on there and hit the trim tool. Now trim that hole in there like so. We still want this circle because what I'm going to do is come in and I'm looking at this and I'm going to create a pipe shell in here. So we're going to come up and come over to the sketcher, click on top, and I'm going to create another sketch in here, and this is going to be the smaller circle. So this is on the XY plane looking down, and I'm just going to create a circle that's connected to that center point there like so. Hit close, and we're going to bring this around and I'm going to transform this down. Click on the sketch, click on Z and move this down to somewhere like there. You can do the same with the other sketch as well. Just transform that so it's down. Don't have to worry about the top trim because we're still in the same position, so that will still take effect on this surface. If we started moving it to the left or right, then that will probably have an effect on there. Actually just modify that slightly. Don't want it too far down. Just going to bring this back up so it's close, so it's just hovering underneath like so. We could use this circle if we wanted to connect it up to there, but I don't want to connect it, I just want it hovering underneath. And come over to the Curves Workbench. Let's give ourselves a bit of space and zoom in. And I'm going to use this vertex here and this vertex. If you want to, you can come in, control click both sketches and increase on view. If we go down to the point size, we can increase that so we can see those vertices. Click on front, and you may want to click on your surface, just press spacebar. Click off, make sure nothing's selected. Click on one vertex, control click the other. Got those two selected and create a freehand spline between those two. Now I'm going to click on this line, and though it looks like it's not selected, it's still in edit mode. Just hit I. That puts a point in there that we can adjust. I'm just going to make some curvature in here. This is going to be for the profile that we're going to sweep around this circle. Double click this B-spline, the freehand B-spline, and that will take effect. So we've got two circles connected with this curve here. So we're going to save this. And we've got this curve and this circle. I'm going to click the B-spline curve. You must select it from the screen, 3D area, and can come up to the create a profile object pipe shell. That creates that as blue. That's a profile now. Now we've got to select the profile from the tree view. This is important, from the tree view, and control click the circle that we want to use. I'm going to use this one down here to sweep around. We can then click on the create a pipe shell sweep that sweeps that pipe shell around there. Remembering that we swept the object around here, we can use these if we so desire, these lines as well, if we want to do any more additional modelling in there, because we haven't converted this to a solid yet. Come into the pipe shell. Let's give ourselves a little bit of space and bring this up. And let's have a look down on the data tab. Let's see what we've got. We've got the samples here. I'm going to just decrease this to something like 20, like so. We don't need too many samples in there. And we're going to come up, output, I'm going to create this as a surface. Click, got our surface to the pipe shell there. Let's bring back our trim face, like so. And we've got those two there. So we've got a surface on top of a pipe shell. Just going to hide this sketch and this one as well, pressing the spacebar on those. So we've got these two surfaces here. I'm going to join these together in a compound object. To come over to the part workbench. The reason why I'm doing this is that I want to lasso a number of profiles across this using the section tool. We can only do that if these are connected together in some way. Therefore, we get the profile of this and this combined together. I'm going to select the surface, control select the pipe shell. Come up to the part, compound, make compound. Also available on the toolbar, which is here, but sometimes this will be a different icon depending on what you select last time. Now we've got the compound object. We can click on the compound object and use this tool here. The cross sections, or the part cross sections there. And we can place the cross section where we want to see fit. So I'm going to place it along the YZ, click on sections, and I'm going to say something like 10 sections there. And that places 10 sections along the right on both sides. I'll place them across those two. We're looking for intersections across the pipe shell. So I'm going to increase these to 20. That'll do. If we hit OK, what will happen, it will process and place those sections across here, like so. So it's lassoed these up. Therefore, when we press the spacebar on the compound, you can see those edges there. And we can create our surface from these edges. So click on our profile and just press the spacebar. Let's get rid of that. We're going to do the same along the other way. So bring the compound back. Let's just hide our compound underscore CS, which is our cross section. Select the compound, use the cross section tool again, and this time we're going to place it along this axis there, the XZ axis. Sections around about 10 this time, and on both sides. Let's have a look, see how that's cross sectioned across there. I'm going to go a bit more, so 14. OK that, and that will lasso around that section. There we go. And we can do the same. So now we've got the compound CS for both of those. And we've got the waffle shape starting to take effect. The thing is with these is that we can't extrude these one because they're a bit too complex. So we need to break these down. There is a number of ways of doing that. The easiest way, if I just work with one, this one here, to click on it. These are all edges. Come over to the draft workbench. We'll get the gridding up here, so come over to the lock object and just disable that gridding. There we go. I'm going to take that compound CS, go to modifications and downgrade. What will happen is that you'll get all of those edges there, which we can extrude individually. Come back over to the part workbench. Make sure that our compound CS, the other one, is invisible. You can see the compound CS for the other one has disappeared. It's been converted. So parametrically, we won't be able to edit this. This is a thing that you should do last of all, once you've decided that you've got your model created and is set. Click those edges, like so, and do an extrusion on there along the Z, and we're going to go something like 15 millimeters. Okay, those extruded all along there. That might be a bit too much actually, so we can change those extrusions, click on them, and bring this back down to 10. Now we've got those there, we can go the other way with the extrusions as well. So we've extruded one way. Maybe worth putting these in a group first of all. So right click on FreeCAD, document, create group. That'll create a group down the bottom, and we can just give ourselves a bit of space. Click on the extrude, click on the last extrude, which is right way down here, and move those into that group there. Now we've got this group. Let's have a look, see what we've got in there. You can see that contains a number of extrusions there. We're going to repeat the process with the other sections now. So I'm going to click on that group and press the space bar. I've brought back the compound object. And we need to come back into the draft workbench. Click on the compound object, come over and downgrade it. So we can get to the downgrade from this toolbar, or modifications, downgrade. Those edges have all been downgraded now. And we want to extrude this. So come back over to the part workbench. If you haven't clicked on anything, then all those edges will be selected. If not, click one, shift click the last one to actually select those edges. And we can extrude those now. Extrude those by 10 along the Z. Okay, that. And those have extruded. Some that you may not want, such as this one here, we can get rid of that in a moment. Let's add these to a group. Click on your document, right click, create group. Click on your first extrude, click on your last extrude, and drop that into the group. So we've got two groups now, which we can make visible. So you can see our surface is starting to take effect. Now we've got this model, we can add the depth extrusions in there. So one group here is for the horizontal pieces. Just going to rename that. And the other group is for the vertical. Or we could use U and V for this. So let's have a look at these extrudes here. So I can click one and then click on the other and create the extrude along the x-axis. And we want something like 1 millimeter along the x-axis. So that's changed those now. This group has become hidden. And what's happened is down here, we've got these extrusions here. So this is the second lot of extrusions. So I'm going to place those into the H group. So now in there, we've got the extrusions in there. Let's do the same with the V group. And we want to extrude that along the Y. So those are now extruded along the Y-axis. And we've got the shape here. We can bring back compound. And you can see how that's taken effect there. We can play with the symmetry of the extrudes if we so desire to get the effect that we want. So the previous surfaces have been using open profiles. The sketches are open, they're curves, they're lines. In this one, we're going to be looking at a closed profile, so something that has got depth. We're also going to be using some other tools in the Curves Workbench, and that will be the multi-loft. This one is just a quick tutorial just to give you a taste of what you can do. And we'll be looking at extending this in future videos. So we're going to look at a closed profile shape now and do the waffle structure against that. So I'm going to come over to the sketcher and I'm going to create a new sketch. I'm going to create the profile along the XZ plane, so looking along here. And we're going to create the profile. I'm going to go for something simple like a slot or something like that. Actually, let's go for a B-spline and just create something a bit interesting. There we go, something like that, and close that. I can come over to the Curves Workbench, and there's a number of ways of creating this profile. I'm going to create a solid object, but I'm going to take the profile and I'm going to use the drawing curves once again to make that mobile, and right click, transform that. I'm going to transform this over in this direction and add some angle to it. Okay, I'm going to bring back the other sketch and do a drawing curve on that. Just hide the sketch, click on the new drawing curve, right click, transform, and we're going to do the same, and I'm going to place this over here and create some angle on that. Okay, so I'm going to keep this sketch available. I can make another drawing curve on this. Let's make another drawing curve, keep it consistent. Click on the sketch, press the spacebar, and we can come over to the part workbench and click the drawing curve, come up to part, make face from wires, and do the same with the others. This drawing curve here, this one here. You could use a sweep if you so desire, but I'm going to just use this in the Curves Workbench. Now I'm going to click each of these profiles, these faces. Those faces are selected. Just going to come over to the Curves Workbench. Could have done this in the Curves Workbench, best too. And then use the multi-loft to loft between those. So we've got this shape here. And we can change the profiles if we so desire. We can make them smaller or larger, add different profiles in there to get a different lofted surface. Just going to hide that sketch and also come into the multi-loft, and we need to hide these join curves as well so we don't get that curve on that face. Now I've done that, it's the same process really. If we come over to the part workbench, then we can use this multi-loft with the section tools, decide where this is going to be sectioned, XZ, how many, 10 on both sides, let's go 14, okay, that'll lasso that against that shape, and then do the same. So I'm going to hide that multi-loft cross section, click the multi-loft, do a section, cross section across that along the YZ sections, and we'll go 10 on both sides and okay that. So we've got both of those there. We can come into our multi-loft, press the spacebar, bring back the sections, and if we have a look we can see we've got this one here. Let's just hide some of these. So that one's closed, so that one will be still okay. Just have to watch out with some of these. But when we downgrade these or upgrade them, with this one, we're looking at closed wires. So they're all closed. So when we come over to the draft, we can click on our multi-loft cross section, modifications, and then upgrade this time. So we're upgrading this to a more complex shape, which is a face, because they're all closed. Let's get rid of the gridding like so. We've got those, and then bring back the others. Make sure the multi-loft is selected. Come up to modifications, upgrade, and we've created our structure there. And there we can go back to these individual faces. You'll see there's a load of them there. We should have grouped these up first actually. So let's bring it all the way to there. You can see where the grouping, it comes in handy, because if these were in one group, we can just select all of them in that group. Come over to the part workbench, and let's add the extrude to that. And we're looking to extrude along the y-axis to give it some depth. So Y, and we'll go 1mm along there. And we've placed those extrusions along there. And the same for the other faces. Click on that one. Click on the last face. Do the extrude 1mm, and we're looking to extrude along the X, and OK that. And then we now have our structure. We can take these further and take the individual pieces out and make some modifications against them. We can add slots for all these individual pieces, but I'm going to leave that for another video, because there must be a quick way to do this. And I'm thinking about booleans and unions and cuts with these to do that, but I'm going to leave that to another video until I've got that technique down and be able to show you how to do that. So I hope that's helped. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it useful, and I'll see you again soon. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a Ko-Fi site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you again soon.